Today we're going to talk about 5 drinks that can help remove fat from your liver. First of all, what is your liver? Your liver is an organ in your body. It's one of the largest organs in your body, and it actually plays an absolutely critical role to detoxify your body, but it does it through your blood. So your blood sends a huge amount of volume into your liver. Your liver actually filters it, and the cells in your liver actually basically clean your blood, remove those toxins, and send it on its way to actually go get more oxygen and nutrients to be pumped out. Now, the liver actually has some fat in it, and it actually can hold on to fat. So when you actually have more fat than your body can store, it winds up actually being sent over to the liver. So think about the liver as kind of a storage area for extra fat. And you can just build up there until your body needs that fuel, which comes in the form of fat, and burns it right down. All right. So we're going to come into this a little bit more, but your liver's basically main function is to cleanse and detoxify your body. So what's the connection between fat, body fat, and liver, like liver fat? So I'm going to actually walk you through what happens when you actually eat and how your liver plays a role when it comes to fat. When you actually eat food, all right, whatever it is, even healthy foods, you're eating your food, you're chewing it, it's going down into your system, you're digesting it. Your metabolism, your body's hardwired to take the energy from the food that you've eaten and store it in your muscles, use it in the blood, and anything extra can be stored into body fat. The body fat can store it anywhere. It can store it under your skin, subcutaneous fat. It can store it into the center of your body. Okay, the tube of your body can have fat. It's called visceral fat. A little bit of visceral fat is normal. It's a storage area. A lot of visceral fat is dangerous. It doesn't matter how big you are. You could be real thin and have a skinny tube of your body, but it can be packed with fat. And so then you're active, you're using up the energy, you're burning down the fuel, all right, until it's time to load up again on your fuel. So think of your body like a car. You kind of alternate between going fast, going down a road to do your business, versus looking at the fuel tank and it's low and you got to fill up again. Filling up is like eating. When you eat it, you store it into your fuel tank, all right, just like a car at a filling station. And in the case of your body, energy is actually stored in body fat until you burn it right down. All right. Now, what happens if you actually start to accumulate fat, more and more fat? Well, fat is accumulated in cells called adipocytes. All right. These are special fat cells that you're born with. In fact, it's one of the early cells that forms in your body. And it's critical because adipocytes or fat cells are fuel tanks for your body. Now, unlike a fuel tank in a car, which is made out of metal and very rigid, the adipocyte or fat cell is stretchy. So you can actually take a fat cell, load it up with fat, and it can stretch up to 3 times its size, 300% larger. And if you do that over and over and over again, you can kind of see how your body would start to swell. And that's actually how fat grows. Now, when your body's actually burning fuel, you're exercising, you're in motion, what happens is that the body will draw down that fuel that's stored. And in fact, it even does it when you're not in motion. When you're sleeping, your body will start to burn down that fuel as well at night. All right. So whenever you're not taking in calories, you're not eating, your body's actually going to switch gears and start to burn down that fat. All right. When you exercise or in your motion, you're going to burn it down even faster. So that's how body fat is built up. That's how it's actually burned down. And that's just part of the cycle of life. Now, when your body fat actually is filled up, so let's say you're eating and overeating, that's actually one of the most common causes of fat accumulating in your liver. You're eating too many calories. Those calories are going into your stomach. They're being absorbed in your bloodstream. And now you got to store them. You store them in the body fat. Remember I told you, single fat cell can swell 3 times its size. And then the next fat cell needs to get stored up and it will swell 3 times the size. And then the third one swells up 3 times the size over and over again as you're actually loading up on your calories. All right. With overeating, you're way overloading on the fat. The fat is building up oh man, you're kind of run out of fat. So what it does is it calls on your stem cells in your fat to make more fat cells. And when I went to medical school, I was always taught by my professors that you're born with all the fat you're ever going to have. That's not true. We now know with more modern research that in fact, fat can actually generate more of itself. All right. When it needs to through these stem cells. So energy into your body gets stored in fat. Fat can expand, and then fat will shrink when you're actually burning down the energy. But what happens if you keep on overeating way more than you're actually burning it down, right? So think of this like a sink, right? The sink in your bathroom or your sink in your kitchen. You've got the spigot on. That's energy coming in. That's like fuel coming in. You got a drain, removing the fluid. That's actually burning away that energy, all right? So a couple of things that can happen. If there is a blockage in the sink, there's no outflow, guess what? Then you can just eat regular amounts of food, put regular amounts of water into your sink, and it'll build up, and overflow. This is what happens when you actually have liver failure, and livers can fail when they're full of fat. When livers are full of fat, they're not functioning properly, and you're not able to burn down that fat because there's so much fat in it. And so now, when the more fat you eat, it just keeps on swelling and building up. All right. Now, the other thing that you can actually do to overwhelm your sink is if you put on the spigot on full, all right, and the drain doesn't change, and you walk away, and now your water level goes up. It's the same thing in your body. Fat and fuel goes up. Eventually, it's going to spill over. And this is what actually happens with fat cells in your body when you're storing fuel. You're eating, overeating some more, still overeating. All right, now your fat cells swell. Eventually, there's spillage, just like the sink that you put on wide open, the spigot. Water flows out of the sink down into the floor. All right, water's got to go someplace. Guess what? When you overeat and you overwhelm the capacity of fat to store that fuel, what happens? The fat, the energy, spills out of the fat into your bloodstream. And now you've actually overflowed the tank. Now, in your human body, that overflow gets caught by the liver. Remember I told you the liver's job is to detoxify. So when you've got this spillage of fat, so think about like an oil tanker running aground and spilling all the oil in the ocean. Well, when that actually happens in your body, and you've got fat spilling out, your liver basically jumps into action to detoxify the body. So it absorbs all that fat, and it stores it all up, okay? It's just another sink. It's another storage area for all this extra fat. Your body doesn't want to lose energy that is captured, so it'll actually store it in the liver. The liver gets filled with fat. Remember what I told you, when you overload the liver with fat, it stops functioning properly. And remember what I said about the function of the liver. It is a detoxifier in your body. When you've got too much fat that's overflowed your tanks of your fat tissue, and that fat overflows into your liver accumulates it, and now it knocks out your liver function. Now the liver can't detoxify. That can cause all kinds of problems, right? Because now you're not detoxifying other things as well. And the liver also makes proteins. And so when your liver's not functioning well, it's also not going to make the right kinds of proteins. What kind of proteins? Well, like the proteins you need to clot your blood. So when you have liver failure, guess what? Your liver is unable to make those substances that actually help your blood clot. So you become highly vulnerable to bleeding, hemorrhage, which can actually be fatal. All right. So again, make it yourself. You're going to get store-bought. Just be really careful because most of the watermelon juice that I've ever seen in a grocery store is packed in plastic. Now you got microplastics to worry about, and it's got a lot more than watermelon juice in it. It's got added sugar, and you want to avoid that if you're trying to actually unburden your liver from fat. All right. Now, the fifth beverage is drinking water. All right. Drinking water is the most popular beverage in the world. Number 2 is tea. Number 3, I think, is coffee. All right. And clinical studies have taken a look at what happens when you drink water. It's more than you think. Like water is good for hydration, all right? But it turns out that if you actually drink water, a couple of things happen. First, it stretches your stomach out when you're drinking water before a meal. And when your stomach's stretched out, it sends a signal to your brain, hey, we're kind of filled up here, so don't get too hungry. So you can actually blunt your appetite just by drinking water before a meal. That means less calories are going to go in. All right, so drinking water actually can provide that. The other thing that's really interesting is that drinking water triggers thermogenesis. Now, this has been studied. We believe that it's because there's temperature sensors that are in our stomach. So you drink water, glug, 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 goes down into your stomach. It's sitting in your stomach. Guess what? Water tends to be cool or cold. It activates the temperature sensors in your stomach, and all of a sudden your body goes, whoa, near my core, I got cold water. I got to fire up. I got to fire up to heat it up because I don't want to have a cold core. What does that firing up mean? Thermogenesis. All right. And so researchers in Germany have looked at this. They actually found that drinking just 2 cups of water caused an increase in metabolism by 30%. Increased metabolism by 30%, you're burning down fat. You're actually firing up your thermogenesis. Brown fat fights white fat. Good fat fights bad fat. You're burning down fat. And now you're actually in better shape. This is just drinking water, all right, just to warm yourself up. Plus the idea of stretching out your stomach so that you're going to be feeling more full, so you'll be less tempted to overeat. Remember, the number one cause of fatty liver in this country is actually overeating. So this is a good way water actually helps to circumvent that, counter that. So now this whole thing about drinking cold water and your body having to heat it up to actually body temperature in order to not freeze your core, scientists have actually calculated this. If you drank 6 cups of water every day for a year, 6 cups of water every day for a year, you would burn on just to warm that water up, you'd burn 17,400 calories just for warming up that water, all right? And that's the energy equivalent of 5 pounds of body fat. That's what we're talking about here. Water fills you up as well, so you're less likely to eat. And then on top of that, it actually requires some energy, some fuel that you can burn away some of that excess body fat in order to be able to warm it up. Now, the other thing about water, if you're actually dealing with a fatty liver, you want to really watch out for is to stay hydrated. Remember I told you that the liver's main role, big role, is actually to detoxify your body. And if you have liver problems, liver failure, or you've got fatty liver, and you are dehydrated, all right? Now you're dehydrated, all those toxins that are not getting purified in your body are getting concentrated. Now you're going to run out through the liver. That's going to be even more painful for your overall health. So staying hydrated dilutes out anything, your blood, okay, in terms of toxins, and is actually better and easier, as a wise thing to have when you actually have fatty liver. In fact, that's just something that you should be doing anyway, is hydrating. But if you've got fatty liver, you definitely want to actually drink water to be able to prevent dehydration. All right. Here's one more thing that I got to tell you as a pro tip. If you're getting water from a store, most likely you're buying plastic water bottles, right? You're going to go for a hike. What are you going to do? You're going to get a 6-pack of bottled water. You're on an airplane. What are they handing you? They're handing you a bottle of of water in a plastic bottle. You go to a sporting event. You're running a marathon. What do the people on the sidelines hand you? They hand you a bottle of water, usually, right? Like, we are so used to bottled water that we don't even give it a second thought. So is bottled water a great source to get your water? No. And I'm going to tell you why. Because now we know that bottled water almost always will have microplastics in that water. You know why? Because the plastic, including the plastic that's been reused, recycled plastic, it's shedding particles into the water, like billions of particles into the water. You can't see it, but it's there. You drink it. Now you're drinking plastic into your body. All right. We now know that it's very hard to avoid plastic. But we now know that if you look in blood, you can actually find plastic. If you look in heart tissue, if you look in blood vessels, if you look in blood clots, if you look in the narrowing of the atherosclerotic arteries, okay, and pick out the plaque and look inside it under the microscope, we'll find microplastics. They've even found microplastics in men's testicles, okay, embedded in your testicles. That's not a good thing, and it's invisible. So there's microplastics, even smaller particles are called nanoplastics, And we didn't used to worry about that. In fact, I would say even a year ago, I would have told you, we don't have enough evidence yet to know that microplastics are actually harmful. So it's probably okay, but cut down your plastic. Now, more recent data shows us microplastics are definitely harmful. In fact, a study from Italy looked at men who were in the hospital having to have surgery to remove blockages from their arteries, neck arteries, right? And when they looked under the microscope, guess what? In those blockages, they found pieces of plastic. You can look this up on the internet. You just look for atherosclerotic plaque microplastics and hit image, and you'll actually see the picture of the plastic studying that the plastic. It's kind of like litter on a beach, except that this is inside your body and stuck to your blood vessels. And what the study from Italy actually showed is that people with plastic studying their vessel blockages had a 4-fold increase in having a heart attack or a stroke. So this is no kidding anymore. We're actually beginning to take a look at real harms, things that you don't want to actually have happen. So you're going to drink water, get it in a glass bottle or a glass container. Avoid plastic water bottles. It's also better not to use plastic water bottles. You got to throw away, and it's going to wind up in the sea or wind up in a dump. We already have plastic everywhere. That's even in the air that we breathe. So, use less plastic. The other thing is that if you're storing plastic or taking water with you, let's say that you have well water at home and you're going to actually load up a bottle, think about it. Those water containers that you might actually have in a thermos, make sure you get one that's got metal in the middle of it and not plastic, right? Think about those plastic sports water bottles that you might have for your bike, you might take for a jog, you might go out hiking with. Guess what? You're going to be putting those things in the dishwasher, and when the dishwasher wears down the plastic, then what do you think happens? The plastic crumbles and it goes into that water, and then you're drinking it and you can't see the plastic. This is a big problem, all right? So I'm going to say it again. Drinking water is good for helping you lose excess body fat among many beverages we talked about. But if you're going to have water, don't get it in a plastic bottle. Avoid plastic for your health, no matter what it takes in order to be able to do that. Now, some people will say, okay, let's figure I'll have glass bottles or I'll get it out of a tap. Dr. Lee, how much water should I drink? Should I really drink 10 tall glasses of water a day? Like, isn't that what the Boy Scouts said, or your mother told you, or your teacher told you? Look, this is actually what happens with these generalizations. Drink 10 tall glasses of water a day. There's no rule of thumb. Research has shown that not everybody needs to drink 10 tall glasses of water a day. You should drink liquid every day, and that liquid should be mostly water, all right? But it's not necessarily 10 glasses. It all depends on context. If you're a big person, you might need more water to be able to hydrate your tissues. If you're a smaller person, a thinner person, you might not need quite as much water. If you are just at home working, you might not be losing too much water. You're probably not going to need quite as much water, probably not 10 glasses. But if you're out working in the garden, or you're hiking someplace, or you're training for a marathon, or you're going to the gym working out or swimming, okay, you're probably going to need more water. In fact, it may be even more than 10 cups of water. So the best way to think about how much water you actually need to have is to be in touch with your body, to feel how much you need. It's something called interoception, right? And so just feel like, okay, do I need to drink water? Pay attention to it. If you feel like you're thirsty, if your body is telling you it needs water, drink some water, okay? Sip it, don't chug it, all right? Chugging is like after you've been lost in the desert. Sip it in order to be able to actually let your body equilibrate. Take your time with it, but satisfy your thirst. That's the best way to know how much water you should drink. Now, we've been talking about losing body fat and the beverages that can actually be helpful, but here's the thing. In the context of fatty liver, I need you to understand what I said at the very beginning. Your liver is a critical organ for detoxifying your blood. When you've got a fatty liver, you're pretty far down the road in terms of having a health impairment, right? The good news is you can actually do things like drink certain beverages, like we talked about, to be able to unpack the fat out of your body. Your liver will actually start to recover, and that's actually something you can do for yourself. But if you have fatty liver, you definitely need to be working with your doctor in order to be able to actually deal with it, because fatty liver is a serious problem. All right. It is not a homegrown remedy type of issue. The things we talked about, things you can drink, and I'm going to do another YouTube video talking about foods you can eat to unpack your fatty liver. But the things, these are all sort of the things that you can do for yourself. The healthcare you can do at home, but you're going to need to be under the supervision and the guidance of a medical doctor who's probably going to refer you to specialists to help you have the best outcome if you have fatty liver. And this requires professional help. Hope you learned something from this, and thanks for watching. Dr. Lee, out. Hi there. If you enjoyed watching this video, I know you'll love the next one. Stay here and check it out, and I'll see you there.